All right. Happy New Year. Welcome back to Product Coffee. We are here getting started with a whole new year. Got a really fun session today to kick it off with. But before we do that, let's just hang out here in the studio for a minute and start off with our first cup discussion. And for today's first cup discussion, our guest today, by the way, is Cavelle Benjamin. He is the Director of Product Management at Grainger.
Yes.
And he's been working on some really cool stuff that we're going to show you in a little while. And a lot of it's around using AI in product management, and not just for the product management team, but to align the whole organization. So it's really exciting stuff. Before we do that, I was looking at LinkedIn the other day, and you had posted a YouTube video, a very simple little YouTube video from Anthropic, and some of your commentary on it. And it dealt with this challenge that I've heard almost everybody I know with kind of roll their eyes at, complain about, get frustrated with. And that problem is how modern AI, LLMs, and chatbots have this total sycophantic attitude towards everything that you do. You are brilliant. No matter how stupid your idea is, it's the most brilliant thing they've ever heard. They're incredibly complimentary. They just drip with unnecessary praise. And they also don't necessarily give you honest isn't the right word because that anthropomorphizes them too much. But they don't give you helpful feedback very often.
Right.
For a lot of good reasons. And so Kelly dropped the video in the chat there, so you can go watch that later. It's about 6.5 minutes long. It's a really short video, but it was a really good overview. But tell us what you saw there. Tell us what you learned from that and kind of where you took it.
So I really just got started, and Jason, you know this, really got started in using AI recently. And getting that response of great idea, makes sense, I should have figured that out. And I knew that when I got those answers, I was going to get some weird results. And it was prompt after prompt. And hearing the word sycophancy and the way that it was talked about by Anthropic and the way they're doing their research around it to minimize it, and what they actually suggested you do as a user and how you phrase things. Don't talk about your emotions. Don't talk about what you want, but talk about what needs to happen. And so I kind of took that and said, well, what if I said it needs to be the Socratic method? What if I said, hey, think Socratically and give me a response on this artifact that I've created? Does it make sense? Is it moving in the right direction? And I actually saw it start to ask itself questions before it came to me with, okay, we have some options. What can we do next?
So first of all, what model are you using primarily? Are you using Claude? Or?
I'm predominantly using Claude Sonnet.
Okay.
I go back and forth between Sonnet and Opus.
Okay.
And I'm using open code as part of that, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I see the model responding a little bit better, but the minute I get away from think Socratically, I start to get the great idea. The M dashes or, the rote things. And you think about how these models have been trained. They've been trained to actually get to a goal, and the goal is to be right. And so depending on how you ask questions, it believes it's giving you the right answer, which may potentially play into an emotion or a perspective that you may have given it when you don't realize it. And so how can you be more objective as you give these agents feedback or input to get to the answer that is needed, not necessarily the one that you want?
Yep. So tell me, when you talk about instructing the model to be more Socratic, tell me a little bit, can you give me a real specific example of the exact question you would ask?
So if I didn't like the output, and we'll talk about the models that I'm working with and how I'm structuring them, but as opposed to saying I want to change something, I will say review this Socratically and give me options for how I should change this, and for the goal of making sure that you get more consistent in your responses to me, or you get more consistent in the artifacts that you create.
Okay.
And so I've actually been playing with that a little bit recently for the last couple of days, just to see, am I getting more consistent responses? Am I getting more thoughtful responses? I'm starting to see the questions come through for itself, but also better questions for me. And that was one of the things they talked about in the video. You don't want an antagonistic model talking to you and questioning everything, but you do need a level of question in the process to make sure that things are moving in the right direction.
You want the right kind of pushback and pressure testing for your ideas.
Correct.
And and like I said, it's a problem that bugs a lot of us. And I've gotten to where I largely am able to ignore it, but it also, it does create trust issues.
Right.
I mean, because once again, these are probabilistic models. Their job is to determine the right next word in the simplest terms, or the right next token. And the way it knows that it has done so is when it gets positive feedback, when it gets confirming feedback.
Right.
And it has, and I know in that video, one of the things that she talked about, who was the speaker? Do you remember?
I don't remember the speaker's name, but PhD.
Yeah. She works for Anthropic,
but in a psychological role in psychology. So it was the role that she's in is very interesting, but the intent is to make sure that users are safe when they use models.
Yeah.
Right. That's part of her role in what they're doing, and making sure that users get, you can call it honest, but the most appropriate answers for what they're asking for.
Yep.
So,
I'll look up her name here in just a second, just so that we've got it. But one of the things that she pointed out is that essentially all of the foundational companies are dealing with this problem. They are literally working to try to overcome this problem with sycophancy and getting a little bit better with each iteration. But it is so it's not limited to one specific model. It's this common problem. I saw an article, coincidentally, actually, it was on Business Insider, and they were interviewing this guy Cavelle Benjamin, who is one of the he's a professor at the University of Montreal. He is considered one of the godfathers of AI. He's one of kind of the original, or one of the longest term thinkers in modern AI and developer and computer scientists. And even he was saying, I lie to my AI. And it's not to deceive the AI and conceal information from the AI or point it in the wrong direction. It's to try to avoid this same problem. Instead of saying, I have an idea, he'll say, my colleague has an idea. This is a paper written by my colleague, and I'd like you to critique it. So the model tends to, in his observation, not go as strong on the you're brilliant and more into an honest or a real valuable critique and evaluation, more objective, exactly. Because it's not trying to elicit an emotional response from who it perceives as the writer of the content. Right. It's trying to help you perform your task, which is evaluate the content.
And I think that's one of the interesting things about how folks are leveraging AI today, in that there's an opportunity to use it as an evaluation in addition to creating the content. But how do you create a system of framework so that there is this feedback loop, not just for you, but for the agent, and how they're giving you the artifacts, they're giving you the content that you are expecting, and how it aligns with what your bigger goals are, whatever they are. If it's specifically in product management, the goal is to create value, right? And so are we clear that we're actually creating value? Okay, the model said this is going to be great, thumbs up, right? But then let's go back and evaluate how the model actually got to that conclusion. And are we giving the model enough tools and frameworks to be able to say that, yes, this is a good enough conclusion to come to?
Right. So, by the way, I want to welcome everybody who's here joining us, whether you're in Zoom with us or if you're out there on YouTube watching us and you can't talk back, at least say hi in the chat. We'd love to hear from you. But if you're here on the Zoom call, this opening segment, this first cup, is for you to be a part of. This is all of Product Coffee is a meetup. It's not just a come and watch a couple of other people talk, be a part of the conversation. So I want to throw the question out there to everybody who's with us on the Zoom call. Have you noticed how are you dealing with this sycophancy problem? Is this something that bothers you in your day-to-day work? Is it something you don't care about? Have you noticed it, or do you just deal with it? I'm really curious about what some other folks have experienced. Please turn on your camera, by the way. We'd like to ask you to turn on your camera and join us here as though we were meeting up for coffee in person. Be a part of the discussion. And there is Christian, our newest insider member. Welcome back, my friend.
Hey, thanks.
Yes.
Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. So how about you, Christian? Have you experienced this problem, and how are you dealing with it?
Yeah, I put in some custom instructions, like if I'm using ChatGPT to tell me the truth, make sure it's the truth only, double check your work and things like that. And that helps some, but it's still, and I try to say to talk straight, don't add anything. So I try to put all the settings so it's as like straight talk as possible.
So you're essentially using your context and your system prompts to lay a foundation to ask it to avoid that behavior in the beginning.
Yeah. And I'd say it reduces it. It doesn't eliminate it, but it reduces it some.
And that speaker we're talking about on the Anthropic video is Kira. Her PhD is in psychiatric epidemiology,
yes,
which is really really interesting. That we're using that in studying AI. So
yes.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I'm glad she's doing it either way.
In relation to how those systems interact with humans.
Yep. Let's see here. Who else do we have on here? I want to, first of all, hey Amit, hey Brian, hey Chuck, Jerry, Jim, Joanna, John, Christian. We just Ori, Peter. We got a great audience here. Stephen, Wes. Good to see so many people back. Who else has first of all, I'm going to invite you just to introduce yourself as well, regardless of whether you have a take on this, but that's kind of the topic of the day right now is how do you manage this problem of AI sycophancy? And Chuck, you've got your hand up, so say hello.
Hi, y'all. Sorry, I can't be on camera right now.
That's okay.
Yeah, I've been building kind of a personal assistant with Claude and my Obsidian pieces. And one of the key things I did early on was give it a consistent persona, which was, in my case, you're the demanding professor who always wants you to refine your thinking, never accepts the answer is right, and pushes back. So kind of similar to the Socratic piece there. And then I have also, given it different contexts. So if I'm asking for research or job help, kind of what my expectations are, the tone, and those particular things. And those have helped. It still gets a little, hey, good thoughty. So I have to watch it. The other thing I've done too, just for pieces in there, is anytime we're doing research or anything, I ask for citations and links, so I can at least second source it. Because as was said earlier, it sounds so accurate that unless you really know the context, it's not always easy to tell if it's making something up. So I pretty much assume it's confabulated stuff kind of early on and work through that.
Are you having success? So when you're asking for citations and sources, are you having more success than we were, say, a year ago with getting actual real sources versus hallucinated sources?
Yes. So in cases where I've built learning plans using it, and it's kind of set up a good learning plan. Claude's good for that, by the way.
Okay.
It often is providing links. Now, sometimes they're a little older, but they're generally pretty solid. So, I may ask it some questions, but then if it's talking about some pieces, it's gotten fairly good at giving me referenceable links.
Okay.
But it's much better than a year ago.
Good. Cool. All right. Who else do we have here on the let's see here. Let's say hello to Stephen. We haven't seen you in a little while. Welcome back, my friend. Good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be back. Sorry, my camera's over over here and my main screen is over here. So I look
That's
like I'm
quite all
looking
right.
away from y'all. But um, I don't use AI chat probably as much as I should.
Okay.
I definitely see the like sycophancy thing, like every time you ask it anything, it's like, that's a great question. And I'm not sure if it really is, because I'm like I said, I don't leverage it the way I should. So I'm working on trying to use it more in general. Right now I'm working on getting kind of educating my team here at my company, the non-technical people, about what AI can and can't do for us and how we can work it into our product workflow. But so if y'all have any, I'm curious to hear from y'all about how you use chat and what you do about the sycophancy and hallucinated responses and stuff.
Very good. Cool. Yeah, definitely. I mean, these are a couple. And one thing that I've noticed actually, I've only had a few minutes to play around with the workflow that you're building, and we're going to talk a lot more about that in a minute. But when you give, when you're working in a project mindset, when you're working with a specific outcome in mind,
Right.
when you give your AI tool, your agent, a specific workflow or output format that you're looking for, it does tend to sideline all of the sycophancy. It really, because it says, okay, my job is now to fill out this form, essentially to create this specifically formatted. Mostly.
Yeah.
Still see a little bit.
I still see a little bit. I actually was talking with some folks that are in design, and they asked, like, run it again with the same prompt, just to see how consistent it is with producing the artifacts. Does it skip steps? And so, again, we'll talk about the fact that even though you're giving it a workflow, there's probably opportunity to even narrow the scope of what we have them do versus here is a piece of software that is actually going to dole out very specific tasks to agents for that body of work. And so there's that interplay of, well, if it's a template, it should be easy to fill out. And I actually was just watching a video recently where the person had to go back and create a skill for the template to make sure that it was pixel perfect to match, because the model still wasn't quite matching even though it was a template. So there is some, I won't call it slop, if you will, but there is definitely some meandering that they still do.
All right. Yeah, and I think you had another post asking about the design implications as well that we won't get into today, but I'm really curious about any feedback you get from that. Let's see. Let's jump down here and so does anybody? So first of all, if you've definitely got some tools or some approaches you've been using to manage the output and the relationship that you have with your AI, would love you to raise your hand and prioritize you. But in the meantime, I'm going to jump up to John. How warm are you today, John?
It's pretty warm here in Minnesota
Yeah,
for
how we doing?
January. But we're in the 30s. We're in the 30s today.
That's not
Pretty
too
good.
bad.
The way
Yeah.
that I use LLMs to avoid sycophancy is to always put it in a position to argue a side. And I often try to get it to argue against what my best judgment tells me, to try to double check. Am I really going in the right direction, or am I missing an opportunity that's right there that I don't see?
Can you give a quick example, even a high-level example of how you might phrase a prompt to do that?
I've got a specific custom GPT to help me make tough decisions, and it's set up in a way that it comes to a best recommendation and immediately goes to argue for that best recommendation and then argue for the next best option.
Okay.
And comparing and contrasting how it approaches those two helps me to make sure that I'm making the right choice.
Okay.
What rubric are you using for that argument?
That's a good question. it'd take me a few clicks to get there,
And I
but I
ask
think
because
it's maybe an 8-step process
okay,
to get from, here's the situation, here's the options that I'm already thinking about. Tell me about what other options might be out there. Um, Tell me how you get to the best recommendation, then argue between the top two. Um, and I think I do something clever on the last step too, that gets me thinking outside of my current train of thought and into, is there anything that I might possibly be missing, or am I missing some reasonably anticipated consequence
hmm
that maybe it looks good today, but a month from now I'll regret that I chose that path.
makes sense.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Joanna, welcome back. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and tell us what's got your attention, or your thoughts on dealing with AI being a suck up.
Yeah, hey everyone. In the office, so you might hear some sound, but my name is Joanna Rosato. I work for Truist as a product owner for our website, mostly working with AEM, and I am pretty new to using LMs. We don't have a lot of integration here right now. We just got Copilot, so trying to figure out ways to implement it on a day-to-day basis at work. But when it comes to other ways that I've used it, I would say a lot of what everyone else has been saying. Say, hey, cite your sources. How did you come to this conclusion? Make it from another person's perspective. It's not my idea. But something that I found is if there is a project that I'm tackling and there's a lot of stakeholders and I'm not sure how to kind of approach the entire situation, I give all the information I can to the language model and then I ask, what would you recommend as a next step with this is what I've thought of, but keeping in mind that these are the stakeholders. So we have software engineers that focus on SEO, we have this kind of software engineer, managers. What information do you think I would be missing that would help them better understand the situation, but still cater to their requirements? And just kind of going through and saying, where did you kind of get these sources? Because this is a little bit more subjective. It's feelings and understanding what people are looking for. So really just nailing it down and making sure that they're not just making things up just to please me and give you a response. And I also sometimes even say, if you don't have a response, that's okay.
Yep. Yeah. And I have found some success, like you just said, in specifically reminding the model, don't make something up.
Right.
I sometimes even I've used it enough that ChatGPT at least starts to feed it back to me. Don't predict, know.
Right.
KNOW. I tell it, know the answer. Don't predict
assume.
the answer. Yeah.
Don't assume.
And it has at least when I criticize it, it's saying yes, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to know the answer, not predict the answer, and go do a little bit more research. That seems to be getting some positive motion, but I haven't quantitatively tested it to know that it's helpful.
And what's an example that you have of that, as far as, hey, know the answer, and is it coming back with citations? Is it coming back with relevant research?
So most of my most recent examples are in vibe coding examples.
Okay.
So I'll have something that's not working the way that it's supposed to, and I'll be looking for some help with troubleshooting a bug. And Claude especially will just go off and start with the most obvious solution. And as a developer, that's not a terrible idea. What's the simplest thing that might possibly work?
Right.
It'll implement the most obvious solution, and it won't necessarily confirm that it's worked. So I've built a whole / command for Claude on reminding it of best practices, so that it will go actually test things before it tells me they're done and stuff like that.
Yes.
But very often it'll start to head down a path that is predicting the most likely approach to solve the problem based on essentially a linguistic probability, not by actually going and researching the problem, finding potential solutions, and then ranking them in terms of likelihood of being the right solution.
Right.
So I will often tell Claude specifically, don't predict the answer, go research and know the answer, know your path, make a plan, and use planning mode. And then same thing in ChatGPT. I will if I'm using ChatGPT as a proxy to help aggregate some market research or put a bunch of information. So I do a ton of product manager interviews, researching my book and some other things. I've got a lot of transcripts that I'm going through, and so I'm looking for topics, and I'm specifically saying, okay, don't predict what might be a good topic or a good question. Go look at the open questions that we have and know the answer.
Okay. And I ask that because you bring up, hey, use best practices for coding, for example. I actually, when I try to code, I actually say, hey, use test-driven development. Like start with the failing test, implement the code, and then make sure it works. And I think before I was doing that, I had a bug in something I was tinkering with, and I said, please fix the bug, and it deleted all the code.
Yep.
Because it
yeah.
was like
well, that'll fix it.
It was like the test pass now. The test pass. Like, that's not what I needed you to do.
Yeah. Right. No, that's a great example. That's like the SASTR disaster that we talked about a few months back as well. So let's see. We got a lot going on in the chat here as well. I do want to. We got about 4 minutes left here before we get to our main session. So if you're dying to speak up, raise your hand so I don't miss you. I want to invite Jerry to jump in real quick as well. And I know you've been playing with a lot of things, Jerry, and you're also starting. You're leading a new effort here within the Product Coffee community on some overall AI learning accountability. And I'd love you to talk a little bit about that. But first, tell me what you're learning about managing AI kissing up to you, and then tell me about what you're starting here with Product Coffee.
Yeah, I've struggled with AI being a kiss up since day one, and that is
Let's go. You're a genius.
Well, it's because, and you know this about me. We know each other. I am my own worst critic, right? If anybody human says to me, "Wow, Jerry, that's a great idea," my inner voice says, "Are you sure that's really a great idea, or are they kissing up?" And that's just my own brain at work there. So when I saw that from AI, oh, you're brilliant, or that's exactly the way you want to go, I am like, that immediately started rubbing me the wrong way. And so one of the first things I added to the system prompts for all of the LLMs that I use is a statement that says, I don't like platitudes. Like, tell me the truth, shoot straight. Several of the other comments that folks have made around trying to drive the machine to give more honest feedback. And just like everybody else has talked about, I see the same thing, right? It works to a point, but it's not perfect. Yesterday, turning it to what we're doing with AI in our community, we have a channel now called the AI Habit, and it's a challenge based on. Oh, I should know this right off the top of my head, and I don't. It's the AI Habit Lab is the challenge, and it's based on Hillary Gridley's post that she made last year that had a 30-day challenge in it for learning AI and making AI a part of your everyday use. And so we're on day 3 now of this challenge, and every day we post the next entry from Hillary into the chat, and we all stay accountable for posting or sharing something about our learnings based on that as a thread underneath the challenge. And real interesting, yesterday's challenge had us solicit the machine for ideas, and then it asked us to challenge those ideas, and then it asked us to ask the machine to come back and give us a plan for the best idea. And it was fascinating because the initial list it gave me I liked. Like, I read through the list, and I tried it with both ChatGPT and Claude Opus, And I liked both lists. I was like, wow, those are actually really good ideas for ways I could use AI that I hadn't thought about. Um, and not the, generate a user story type stuff, but like uh, really good ideas. And so I said, well, just pick one and give me a plan for it. I didn't challenge any of the ideas it presented. I said, just pick one and give me a plan.
Yep.
And in both cases, the one it picked of the list was the one that I didn't think was the best at all. And I was like, so I went back and I said, well, why did you tell me why you picked those? Like, of all the ideas you had, what made, and I phrased it like this, of all the ideas you had, what made you think that's the best one? And I was amazed at how it came back and showed how the idea it selected helped me in my job function more than any of the others. And so sometimes just going back to it and when it comes back and says, hey, Jason, you're the smartest guy ever. That's a brilliant idea, blah, blah, blah. Go back and challenge it. Why do you think I'm the smartest guy ever and that's the best idea?
Yeah, one of the other things that I've had it do in that specific vein is LLMs will then typically go back and reverse engineer the reason for their answer. So it won't give you the chain of thought that brought it to the answer it gave you. It will give you a logical chain of thought that could have brought it there. So similarly, overcoming that is to then instruct it to go back. Okay, use that same chain of thought and give me another and answer the question again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that'll be part of the topic that we cover here in a bit.
Oh, great!
Cool.
Awesome.
Yes.
Cool.
That's cool. Because I was going to ask what y'all thought about modifying the system prompt to include a statement along the lines of explain your reasoning as part of your response or something. I don't know what the exact phrasing would be, but
Yeah. I was going to say what we'll get into, at least the way that I've laid it out, is it creates a chain of reasoning from the get-go, so that by the time you get to a list of options for a solution, the chain of reasoning is there. And then when you get into, hey, well, what's the best solution based on these options, you can go back to, well, how do we prioritize the problems? How do we prioritize the outcomes for us to say that this is the best solution? Yep. And so that's where I would say, like, forcing that chain of thought earlier in the process is the key, if you will, because you can follow it, you can share it with others,
right,
and then you can test it. Like, okay, that was the first solution. You say it solves these problems, but not really. And oh, by the way, you've given me something that's React Native because that's what you've been trained on. Or you start with something in Python when the backend system needs to, say, be in Kotlin. So there are things like that you have to monitor as part of that process, but there's definitely a chain of thought that we'll get into.
Yep. And I want to, before we go to the main topic, I do want to give a little disclaimer here, and I want to switch over to Mike, who had his hand up a minute ago. And Mike's one of our premium members and is really active in our community, although he's been too busy to join us on the meetups for a little while. But that's okay. We're happy to have you here, Mike. But the disclaimer that I want to give is we're talking a lot about using AI today. We're talking a lot about some vibe coding concepts and some building application concepts, and are getting down there. There's a line between where product managers must be and where product managers benefit from being, and where product managers don't need to feel compelled to be. And I think we're all still trying to find where that line is. Claire Vaux has a very specific take on the topic. If you don't follow her, she's the creator of Chat PRD. Dean Peters is a great thinker out here in our community. He's with Product Side, formerly 280 Group, and he's clearly on the other side of the spectrum from Claire in this conversation. Watching the point counterpoint is really valuable and fun. So we're talking pretty technically about prompt engineering and managing LLMs today, which I think is a core skill, just like Microsoft Office was a core skill just a few years ago that you had to have. Being able to manage LLMs and use them effectively is a core skill that product managers need to have. And I think that's a lot of the value in the AI habit group that we're creating here in the Product Coffee community. So if you're not a part of our insiders community, I'd really encourage you to join us today. Go over to productcoffee.com. You can join Product Coffee Insiders or Product Coffee Premium. There are two versions. The Insiders get you access to our Slack group, and you can participate in this challenge and be a part of these discussions on a day-to-day basis. It's $20 a month or $200 a year. Most people's training and development budget will cover that for you, and we can help you get it expensed if you need some help with that. And Product Coffee Premium includes monthly workshops. This month, at the end of January, we're going to do a workshop on your annual product review, and it's based on our 90-day product plan that we go through every year to remind us to stop, take a moment, and look at everything that we're doing and plan ahead for the next year. Make sure that we've got the right knowledge in place to be successful in the year ahead. We're gonna do that at the end of the month this year, and that's free for Product Coffee Premium members. Or you can buy the workshop itself for $200 and join us for that one workshop. But we'd love to have you as a Product Coffee Premium and join us every single month. So now let's switch over to my friend Mike, who is all the way from Phoenix, Arizona, and and had some thoughts on the AI topic a moment ago as well.
Thanks for the introduction, Jason. Nice to see everyone. We got some fun things coming in the Phoenix product community. So if you're on LinkedIn and you want to join Product Phoenix, we're following in the great footsteps of what the Product Camp Atlanta community has done, and we're trying to replicate that out here. So appreciate any support. But with that being said, this AI Habit Lab, we're into day 3. I've been blown away by it. No, Jerry's not in the room poking me, telling me to say that. I think it's really cool. We've kind of, I'm framing them as cheat codes, but the AI cheat codes, I know that's not the correct term because I know AI doesn't necessarily have that. But day 1, there was this prompt, and it was simply make this 100 times better. And I'm applying that to kind of any conversation vibe coding project with AI. I'm still wrapping my head around that. That's been really cool to see how it expands that. But one prompt that came up yesterday that I included in the chat was, what changes would you make if I told you I have an extremely high bar for quality and will accept nothing but the best? Explain your reasoning. And that was really cool too, to take this another level, to maybe decrease some of the platitudes as Jerry was talking about, and to get a very concrete answer, or a more accurate answer with the research entailed. So encourage you to join. Again, Jason's not over here as well, telling me to join Product Coffee Premium, but I encourage you to join it. Join the AI Habit Lab. We'd love to have you. These exercises are really cool just to grow and expand. For me personally, I started a new role in December, and we have a enterprise ChatGPT license, so I'm able to use GPT in my workspace, which is awesome. Prior to that, my previous role did not. So all my AI work was tinkering and on my own time, vibe coding, coming up with projects. But I'm now having a great time kind of meshing those both worlds. How can this help me in the professional sense, as well as continuing to grow with my passion projects? So nice to meet everyone, though. Really excited to be here and excited for the talk today.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. And Jerry, you popped your hand up. Let's take just a couple more minutes real quick, and then we'll get into our main topic.
Yeah, just a second, because I wanted to ask Mike, how long do you think you spend on those challenges every day?
It's a great question. The challenges itself, probably 5 to 10 minutes, but it's important for me to engage as well. So I like to review everyone else's response and kind of sit on that. So I'd say maybe 20 minutes for the whole practice, the whole experience.
Awesome. That aligns with me. So for those out there who are thinking about maybe considering joining Product Coffee Premium or joining this AI Habit Challenge, literally I'm spending about 30 minutes a day on it. And that doesn't include the time that I've spent like getting it all set up and queued. This is like executing the challenge. It's about a 30-minute a day exercise that helps build your skills in AI and makes it a daily companion and not something that you go to infrequently. So thank you, Jason.
You bet. And to be clear, for those of you who are following along, the AI Habit Lab that Jerry and Mike are talking about, and Chuck is talking about in the chat here, is a channel within our Product Coffee Insiders and Premium Slack team that you can join, where our community is working together through this guided AI habit project, this 30-day challenge, and sharing what they're learning with each other as they go. To give that extra level of accountability and extra level of fun and extra level of insight as you're working through it. So, but you got to be on the inside to do that. So head over to productcoffee.com and you will find all of our membership options. We'd love to have you. Our weekly meetups are open to the public as a general rule. We generally have a sponsor providing free tickets for them. Today, Prize Picks is doing it. As a matter of fact, why don't we switch over there and talk about our sponsor for just a minute? We go live here on Product Coffee every single week to bring together a global product community and talk about how we can deliver better products to market, how we can grow our careers, and we do it together. I'm a big believer that we can't get there alone. We are a community-driven career. We created, most of us who have been in product management for more than 10 years, helped to create the profession. We were figuring out as we went along just to figure out how to do it all. And we continue to thrive and grow in that way. So we want you to be part of our Product Coffee community, but our sponsors make this possible. Podium Studios, you see Prize Picks, Product Growth Leaders, Career Whisperer, The Brave Start, and Feature Upvote all help us to deliver this great content and these great experiences to you every single week. And all we ask you to do to repay them is get to know them. Check out their websites, learn about them so that if you have the opportunity to introduce them to someone in your network, or if you have the opportunity to let them compete for your business or for your attention, you'll give them that opportunity. That doesn't mean you have to buy from somebody just because, but let them compete for your business and your attention to thank them for supporting your community. All right. So next week, I don't have a card for this one yet, but next week we are going to build our 2026 reading list as a community. We're going to talk about the things that have inspired us, the things that are on our short list for reading this year, in this coming year or in the next few months, and set ourselves some goals for some great content and great authors to be following along with as we continue to level up in delivering great products to market. And it's going to be a really fun session. We did it last year about this time. It was a huge success. We had one of the biggest turnouts we had all year, really active discussions. So think about the types of things that you'd like to learn in the year ahead. And we'll talk about those things as well, because chances are pretty good somebody in the community has got some good content for you, some good suggestions for you. And we'll share all of that next week in our virtual meetup. Okay. And so from there, let's go on and move into today's session. So I want to welcome once again, for those of you who are just joining us at the top of the hour, if you're watching the recording later, we've had Cavelle Benjamin here with us for the first cup today. Yeah, Cavelle is the Director of Product Management at Grainger specifically for retail systems.
Actually, for our inventory management system.
Inventory management system. Sorry, I got that wrong. Yep. But he's been doing a lot of work, and Cavelle spoke at Product Camp Atlanta earlier this year and showed an earlier version of what we're going to talk about today. But he's been doing a lot of work using vibe coding techniques and technology to build AI-powered agents for the product management practice at Grainger specifically. And it started off kind of as a little side project just for yourself to make yourself better, right?
It did. I finally got comfortable with the idea of using AI, and I said, well, can we shift the work left as opposed to the work being mainly for getting software out the door? Can I think about getting to a problem statement? Can I get to a set of solutions that are options to discuss with team members? And that's where it kind of snowballed into, well, how much further left can I go?
Yep. Okay, cool. So since I don't know that everyone is intimately familiar with Grainger as a company and what it is that you do, could you give us a little bit of an understanding there? I've seen some commercials lately, but even they don't go too deep.
So Grainger has been around actually for a while. I believe we're celebrating 95 years or 96 years this year. But they're an industrial supply company. You think about Home Depot Pro or I'll say the boys in blue, Fastenal. Those are kind of in our space. Okay. And so overall, we have what we call our endless assortment, where we provide as many products as you need. And then there is what we call high touch solutions. And that's making sure that our customers know when they are looking for something specific, we have the technologies. We talk about product information or what the customer actually needs. We pull that together and we're able to help them identify the product quickly, help them purchase it, and get it to them quickly.
And this is particularly in industrial products.
Correct.
Okay.
So
what are some examples of the types of industrial products that
Sure. So you think about the nuts and bolts that may go on an airplane.
Okay.
Right? Or some of the power tools, and a good example is Disney.
Okay.
Right? They are buffing out those tiny little nicks that you see in the costumes that are being worn. That's probably that's probably material that we've sold to them,
okay,
for example.
Gotcha. So a wide range of applications, but not the thing that you got some pretty particular challenges and you need some help finding the right products to solve your challenge.
And that's the most important part, making sure we get the right product, because you don't want somebody getting the wrong pump, for example.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And that's the core business. We also have customer solutions, and that's where my team fits in, where we support our inventory management solution, where we will go into a customer site and actually manage their inventory for them.
Okay.
And we have software solutions to help our team members do that.
Excellent. All right. So let's talk about what you've been working on. And I know you brought some slides and you've got some stuff to show. So I'm gonna just hand it over to you and let you kind of run for the next few minutes and just kind of guide us through where you are, where you've been, and how you've gotten here.
Sure. So I guess the first thing is thank you, Jason, for having me, and thank you for keeping Product Coffee going. I know you and I have been trying to get together for a while, and we finally made it happen. And so to your point, like, this is about AI, but it's also about, hey, let's focus on what product management does. And so we won't actually get to AI until the end, because it's about, are we thinking about and solving the right problems? And so the talk being about clinical problem statements, it's how do we create problem statements that are visible for everyone? It's not like an internal thing that product comes up with, and then we have to massage it for our operating partners, then we have to massage it for the engineering team or design. It's a common language, and it also forces us to think about what data we need to support. Yeah, we call things problems, but do we actually have the data to support it?
And that's a great perspective, because we talk about that all the time. You know, product managers own the problem space,
right? And
we're responsible for helping our constituent organizations understand the problem space so that we can deliver solutions to that.
Right.
But a clinical problem statement is a specific way of addressing that, right?
Right. And one of the things that I've always done is look for analogies in other places. And one of the things that was I think trips a lot of product managers up is, where do we define a problem? How do we define a problem? How do we define a need? How do we define a want? And I said, well, what is a system out there? What is a process out there that is consistent as far as defining a problem? And I was like, well, if you treat the work, if you will, like a doctor or nurse, is there a consistent way that they describe the problem? And that's where we get into, like, okay, if you use a framework like jobs to be done, do I get to the same kind of structure that I can share with business partners and they can interact with it? It's not too technical, but it's enough where we're all at the right altitude to describe it and prioritize it.
Okay. All right.
So that's the intent.
Very good.
So
well, take it away then.
All right. Hopefully my screen is. Yep.
Yep.
Should be in presenter mode, so it should come up soon.
You're sharing the wrong screen. You're sharing your keynote window, not the presenter window.
Oh.
We'll fix that in post.
Hold on. Yep.
There we go.
All right. So, you know, I've pulled this, and it'll fix itself here in a second. But I pulled this quote. It's from somebody from the automotive industry, and it'll come up. It's, you know, problem well stated is half solved. And I actually, when I was working at General Electric a while back and going through Six Sigma training, we actually spent quite a bit of time on the define stage, DMAIC, measure, improve, and control, right? And we spend a lot of time on the definition part because there are often times where we would say the answer is actually easy. The solution doesn't have to take 6 months, right? And so the more we can spend time on the problem statement and the better we can get faster at it, right? Because sometimes we can spend months, weeks trying to figure out what the right problem is. But if we have structure, it helps us get to that answer faster, and it helps us get to what we believe is valuable, and there's more confidence in that.
Yep.
And so, and if the slides don't work, we can keep going, but it's effectively what I just walked through. Yeah. Zoom is trying to connect.
Okay. Gotcha. There we go.
Yep.
Well, I'll come back up. Just keep
Yeah.
at it.
So the important piece here is when we talk about a clinical definition, right? You have symptoms, you have a diagnosis, you have a prognosis. And so I said, well, how does that tie in with the jobs to be done framework, if you will? I'm a big fan of the jobs to be done framework.
Yep.
And part of that is focused on outcomes. And if you keep at least the first pass of outcomes that you may create to something like how long it takes, right? Minimize how long something takes, minimize the risk of an error. That capability actually opens up quite a bit when you start to think about, well, how do I use that type of definition for a clinical problem statement?
Okay.
So the job is the patient and the symptoms are the gaps to the outcomes.
Yep.
How slow is it? How error prone is this work? And we should have data for that.
Right.
That's where you can actually go look in your systems or potentially leverage an agent to go look for the symptoms, but they're the symptoms.
Okay.
And so when you get to the diagnosis part, you're looking at root cause. And it's always an interesting discussion when you talk about, well, I need a button because I need to do this. Well, why do you need to do that? And of course, product managers, we love to ask why. This gives us a way to ask why without pissing people off, if you will, asking why 5 times. You can say, well, what's driving that? And have we actually gotten to root cause? Because then we get into prognosis. Well, if we don't change this root cause, what's going to happen now? What's going to happen next, near, later, maybe happen? You know,
there's a whole cascade of possibilities.
Exactly. But that structure, you can apply that structure in any domain, regardless of if it's industrial supply. You can do that in commercial jet engines. The same logic applies. The problems get bigger, right? And this structure scales as those problems get bigger. And as you interact with broader team members. And it also sets you up for how do we know that we're successful? And that's another interesting part of it, because once we've said these are the gaps, here's what's going to happen, prognosis over time if we don't fix it, then we can go back and say, well, if we fix these things now or later, like what's the value that we create? And now it's a consistent messaging system for all team members. And it ladders up very quickly, so you can talk to senior leaders in that structure. You can talk to the engineer in that structure. You can talk to the UX person in that structure, and allow everyone to focus on that problem statement versus, well, I feel like it should be this, or, hey, this is the way we've done it, which is always interesting. And I remember watching one of your sessions about lifting and shifting. You don't necessarily want to do that.
Right. Yeah, and so much of the way we've always done it is tribal knowledge. It's not institutional knowledge. It's tribal process, not institutional. And so by putting, there's a lot of debate in, if you go out on LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of debate and a few really great thought leaders out there will say, hey, you know, all these frameworks are great, but at the end of the day, they don't really get the job done. They're a crutch. I don't know that I understand what they're trying to say. I don't know that I fully agree, because when you put a framework in place, you institutionalize an approach, and it helps you learn from the experiences of others who have come before you in a really meaningful way. Now, as a tier one thinker, as a product person, we should be able to apply and manage those frameworks creatively to get the outcome that we want.
Correct.
But having them in place creates so much consistency and predictability and value in communication.
And so you said institutionalizes, right? It like the knowledge that is there for the whole organization. And then you think about onboarding the next product person or onboarding the next engineer, right? We can reason about the decisions that we've made because we can see that beeline back to a very clear problem statement.
Yep.
Right. And that's where we get into the next piece, which is, okay, if we have the problem statement, we can start to prioritize. It's a jumping off point. And so you can prioritize the outcomes, which outcomes you believe are more important. But then when we actually say the gaps that we have to the outcomes, for instance, I'll give an example. Well, it takes a while to get XYZ done, for example. But if we cut it in half, is that just as significant as cutting this other thing in half?
Yeah.
And now we can talk about prioritizing both the problem statement and the outcomes as we talk about the solution space.
Cool. I'm going to pause for just a moment while we're going to do some technical work here and get you reconnected to Zoom. I think you should be on the Wi-Fi now.
Okay.
And we'll cut this out for the recording.
Okay.
Everybody close your eyes and shut your ears and pretend this isn't happening.
Yes. Never technical problems, right?
Never, ever. Because I know in a minute we're going to get to some visual demonstrations, and I really want people to be able to see them.
Yes, we will. I was working on refining that right before we got here. All right.
Blossom's asking if we're going to be able to talk about the different AI agents that you have built, and yeah, we're going to actually demonstrate some of them, right?
We are. We're going to demonstrate not just the different agents, but also how they are orchestrated together to create a particular outcome. And that's the most important part. Like, I've been driving towards, okay, can I get a draft of what someone would say is a product decision record or a product requirements document, but be able to show, well, here's how I got here.
Yep.
Right? The assumptions, the details, because I think you said it earlier, if someone on the call said it, hey, how did I get here? You gave me something, but can the model actually tell me how it came to that conclusion? And so it actually does walk you through the conclusion. So I can skip forward to a couple of things here. So again, just reminding folks, this is the structure of the problem statement. And we're actually using this with our operating partners. And so we introduced this recently, I want to say mid last year. And it's making sure that our operating partners are actually coming to us like, here's the real problem, and not here's the button that I need. And it's tricky, right? Because again, there's some times where we know we need a thing, but the thing that is being described, the solution may be very different than the problem that you actually are articulating. And so how do we refine how you're articulating the problem so we can say, well, it actually could be this. We could actually automate this thing. Or we can have a different human in the loop as part of the process and take that work off of somebody who's probably already taxed to the hilt, for example. It gives us more opportunity for the solution space. So I mentioned the jumping off point, and I know one of the folks on the call also talked about like prioritization. I'm a big fan of using Kano modeling. It definitely forces a more structured approach.
Kano wins.
Yes. I know Moscow's out there. There are a bunch of things, but Kano seems to be the more objective version of if people have to choose. between now or later, it gives you more structured answers.
It's really data backed, right?
Right.
Because you actually go out and survey your audience, your customers, your market, your potential users, and understand what their needs are. Where Moscow is really good for communicating internally,
Right.
what's gonna be and what's not gonna be.
Right. And you also have RICE. That's pretty famous. I think pretty much every product manager knows the RICE method, reach, impact. And the part there is, if I prioritize with Kano and RICE, the outcomes and the problem statements already have a prioritized set of things that I can look at for solutions. So as opposed to prioritizing the solutions, again, I'm creating a structure where I'm forcing the agents to effectively come to an appropriate conclusion, because you're saying, hey, you need to have some agents over here that are going to pretend to be users, and we're going to see if those agents pretending to be users will help you come to the right conclusion.
Okay.
Now, at some point, I would love to be able to inject a bunch of user surveys into this, but this is pretty simple. And then after that, then we can get into the solution space. And I'll mention a lot of frameworks here. I use Scamper quite a bit to help people.
Not familiar with that one.
So there's always this generative part of the work, right? I've used Crazy Eights to help generate ideas for work, but Scamper is an interesting one. It's mainly with hardware, but it's substitute, combined, add, and I'm trying to remember the last ones, but modify, extract, and reverse.
Okay.
But the intent is that, hey, agent, come up with one hypothesis that will create the most value between the outcomes and the problem statements.
Okay.
Then use Scamper to generate additional hypotheses.
Okay.
So it's a structured way of generating additional hypotheses. So you only get certain versions, if you will. Now, is that creating a closed space? Yes, but it's creating a decent constraint for the model so it doesn't go off the rails.
Sure.
And then I can perform that same analysis. Well, go back and do Kano and perform RICE to see how do these solutions potentially solve the problem in the best way.
Yep.
And so again, forcing that train of thought on the models, and then actually articulate to me saying, well, this is the best solution because it aligns with these 4 problem statements the best, driving these outcomes. And so I say to the models, let's create a thesis statement about why we believe all of this is correct. So we've done all this homework. Okay, give me a thesis. And I used, the simple versions of argument, right? You have to have data, warrant, and claim. And I say, give me an argument for your solution using this structure. And so that has forced the models. Do I get the best answers all the time? Not quite. There's some things that I'm seeing where the models kind of get lost in the middle, and it's better if I break up the work.
Right.
But the simple piece is, if I give you enough structure, can I get consistent train of thought to the value that I want to create?
Yeah, we touched on that a little bit in the first cut before the main program here, about that constraints are very good, because if you give it too much leeway to go off in any direction,
right,
then it will.
Right.
You don't know what it's going to predict is the right next token.
And it's forced to give the answer in a particular format, right? And so the next token, you minimize the randomness of the next token, because here's the artifact that you actually have to produce. And recently I've actually been introducing evaluations for the end of each step. And so models now have to go back and say, well, how close was I to the expected template that I had to use, right? Yep. And it's been interesting. I've been tinkering with it. I've let my boss's boss tinker with it as well. And the goal is for me to actually open source this and share it out and make it useful for other teams. Because for product, I think if we keep it at the right level, our job is to create value. Now, how we do that, if you think about like the different tools that we have, AI is definitely going to be a part of it.
Sure.
The question is, how does it fit into the value creation process? And I think being clear about the frameworks and the train of thought that you use as part of the process is what's going to, I would say, separate some leaders apart from others. Because if you just ask it, hey, I have an idea, that's one thing. But if you say, put it through its paces and argue with yourself about it, let's see if we can come to a better answer. I think that's where you have the starting point for getting to value faster. You have a starting point for making sure that you're actually delivering the value that you believe you should.
Yeah, and you know, on another side of that coin is by putting those frameworks in place. One thing that I was reading an article over the weekend, and I haven't been keeping up with. We all feel that AI is progressing rapidly. I saw a measure this weekend that essentially AI capabilities in some areas are doubling every 8 months, 7.5 months. Doubling every 7.5 months. If you think about Moore's law when we talked about transistor size and compute power at doubling every 18 months, that or cutting in half every 18 months, and now to say that this technology, its utility or its capabilities are doubling in 7.5 to 8 months. The advantage of this framework-minded approach is it can set that fact aside, because the frameworks are fairly static. The frameworks guide you through to a solution, to an outcome that you need. The technology that you're leveraging those frameworks against can improve and get you better results through the framework over time without having to reinvent what you're doing.
I think about it like this. All those frameworks that I just mentioned, those are usually full-day workshops with multiple people. And not to say that that's not needed, that's definitely needed, because you need to have alignment with your stakeholders. It's, can we get to something we can all look at and respond to faster versus us trying to synthesize that work in large groups, or somebody even going off and writing up a document and potentially getting writer's block, if you will, right? I think this will accelerate those conversations pretty well.
Yep.
So, the meat of it.
Yes.
So what I've been putting together, and I'll share the link as well, but the intent here is that there's definitely a structure, and there's a list of frameworks that you'll see here. But the intent is that if you're familiar with the concept of a OODA loop, they use it in aviation, but there's also a lot of that in project management and whatnot. But observe, orient, decide, act. I use that as the grist, if you will, for how can I do that with a set of agents, so that they can, for the most part, go through the workflow without me being too much in the loop. And I am there to check the work or validate the work, or validate that it's good to go to the next step.
Okay.
That being said, as part of this, and if you can see, nope, it doesn't show there. There are about 17 agents that I've created in order to run this. So there's an agent that acts as a product manager. There's an agent that acts as a service operations manager. I actually have a set of agents. Bless you. I have a set of.
Keep going.
Okay.
I'll sneeze over here.
I have a set of agents that that act like an executive leadership team, and so for every artifact, after every step, that team, and I use a framework called 6 Thinking Hats, and each one of the executive leaders has a different hat on, and they all have to agree with a certain percentage in order for the artifacts and the idea to progress to the next step. And so there's this built-in I won't call it antagonistic, but there's this built-in hole poking that occurs between the models because of the personas that they each have. I also have synthesized some users just to see if that makes sense. So in jobs to be done, you have job executors and you have job beneficiaries. And so I've synthesized both executors and beneficiaries by combining 6 thinking hats along with the concept of crossing the chasm. So you may have a yellow hat that is an early adopter. How are they going to approach the potential solutions that are being offered to them? And as I mentioned, I eventually want to get to, well, this is me synthesizing users. What I'd like to be able to do is take a large data set of our actual user data and be able to effectively sample from that, from the existing data, to help drive the feedback that goes into the agents.
Yep.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pause and allow for questions while I switch over to my IDE.
All right. I do want to, while you're switching over, I do want to, Blossom was asking if we were going to see some of the agents in action. And I think you're also going to tell people how they can get their own copy of your agents here in a few minutes as well. But if you stick around to the end, because you'll actually not only get to see them in action, you'll get a copy of find out how to get to the work that's already been done and even participate in that if you'd like to in the future. So hang on with that. Are there any questions out there? I'm scanning through chat right now. There may be some we haven't gotten to, but if so, just throw your hand up and we'll jump into those questions here in just a moment, or while we're doing this. You had asked about more about Kano modeling or Kano modeling, and there are actually a couple of sessions for Product Coffee Premium members and insiders we've got in our archive. There's a session called Get Your Priorities in Order, and it goes through a bunch of different prioritization approaches and kind of the high level on them. And then we've got a full session on using Kano modeling in the real world, or Kano modeling in the real world, that was delivered by, I can't remember who that was. One of the guys from Method a couple of years ago, actually. So if you're a member, you can jump over into the membership portal and watch that. And it's some fantastic content with some real world examples and exercises.
All right. So I will actually share my whole screen. It'll be easier to do that. Sees my lovely picture of Beyonce. I call it Axiom, but this is, and I actually created a website for it the other day, but the intent here is that it's a very quick and easy install, and you can get it up and running pretty quickly from a project. And so I actually just did that. I created a new project. We'll give it a minute to catch up. And I'll call it an example, but you see that it's downloading 2 things. I wanted to keep it more common to how most developers think about the folders and keep it agnostic of one provider versus the other. So as opposed to having a .claude folder, or a .opencode folder, etc., I said, let's do a .contributing folder because agents are contributing to the repo.
Okay.
And then there's an agents file. And this is going to start up. It's going to open Zed. I use Zed as my IDE. I moved away from VS Code. It was starting to get too slow and heat up my MacBook. So I'm going to start Zed. And the way this is set up, inside of Zed, I'm using the OpenCode agent client protocol. And so that effectively, OpenCode is an agent provider, but it lets you bring whichever model you want to the party. I predominantly use Sonnet 4.5. I use Opus every now and then as well, but OpenCode has their agent. I can use ChatGPT if I want to, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
And so let's see here. I'm going to run this pretty quickly. And you see that there's only a .contributing and a .roadmap and the agents. And I'm going to say, I have an idea. And I've set this up so that it's a quick start. You actually don't have to worry about the agents figuring out what they need to do. It will read the repo, read the agent's file. It'll read the .contributing folder and find all of the skills, all of the workflows, etc. as you get started. And this may be a little slow just because of the internet, but as you see, it's going to ask you to capture an idea.
Okay.
And of course, I have an idea that I want to capture.
Like to create a weather app.
Yes. And so it knows what to do, and we'll talk about the actual structure of the .contributing folder here in a bit, but it knows how to capture it. And the capture is interesting because it captures, it starts to capture with the original prompt and then an initial version of the jobs to be done framework.
Okay.
Capture. I think it's remembering some of the old work that I've done.
So an axiom is just the name of the application that
Right,
or
the structure,
okay.
right.
It's just the name that you applied to this project.
Yes, I was looking for names and also looking for URLs. I was looking for domains. And so while it's doing this, I'll actually show a little bit of the .contributing folder. And so there's quite a bit here. You have the agents themselves, and you see what they're doing, the agent roles, the ceremonies, and I'm pretty clear about you have to have ceremonies. There's these bodies of work that you do, and here's the workflow that you need to follow as part of that. They're the commands, and so if you want to do a / command for capturing an idea, you can do that. But then frameworks, I've been trying to implement memory, very tricky. And then skills, open code supports skills now, and you can see there are actually quite a few skills that are being used in order to create this work. And so the first thing you see in the roadmap folder is that we've captured the idea as an artifact. And you have the original prompt and then the full idea. And so that's just the start. And I'm going to say, well, it's a little slow, maybe because of the network, but what I've been tinkering with is having it go without me approving. Because right now the process works by when you finish that step, I need to review it, and then I will approve you moving on to the next step in the loop.
Okay, but you're getting more confident that the framework is giving it the right level of guidance, so you're letting it be a little bit more autonomous?
I'm tinkering with that.
Okay.
I'm waiting to see, am I going to actually get the right artifacts, and am I going to get the right content in the artifacts based upon the templates?
Okay.
And so it really is, I don't think it can ride the bike fully yet, but I'm letting go just a little, just to see.
Gotcha.
And it's not to replace any work that a human needs to do, but it's, can we create a train of thought and then start with, well, here's the problem statement. Oh, by the way, we already have a draft of a set of solutions. We won't touch those yet, but let's focus on the problem statement and see if that validates where we have solutions, what we think is the recommendation.
Okay.
And then you can have more interesting and richer conversations with your business partners along the way without having to stop and say, all right, we're going to break, and it's going to be 6 days until we get the next artifact for everyone to look at.
Okay. Right. So this is much improved.
The thought.
Yeah.
That's the thought.
Yeah.
Yes. So as you can see, it's ready to move forward, and I'll just say, move forward without my approval to the align phase. Now, when I say I don't think it can fully ride the bike yet as it's going, this is where we start having conversations about long context windows for agents and them getting lost in the sauce, if you will. And so there is a discussion that I've been seeing in papers of how do you use memory to minimize a context window and only pull in things when you need it. Skills, how do you use that to only pull in things when you need it? They're showing improvement, but that's a pretty long context window that you have to work with still, from going from an idea to here's a thesis of what we actually want to build.
Right.
And so I'm still seeing the agents get lost or not produce the right artifacts. And so that's where the eval comes in and the validation comes in.
Okay.
So it's been a labor of love, if you will, because I do want to see if this can accelerate time to value.
So you say it's been a labor of love. At the same time, so this started off as your personal project.
Yes.
But you're starting to use it pretty heavily within the teams there at Grainger, right?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. We're starting to use the frameworks more.
Okay, gotcha. The frameworks.
Yes. We will start to leverage this in certain places, I think. We have a pretty strong data science and machine learning team that has shown interest in seeing this work. So if they're out there watching, this is how it works.
Cool.
But yeah, we have AI showcases that we do on a regular basis, and this will be one of the topics to show how it works. But my goal was to get it to a downloadable state, so that it's easy for somebody to pick up and interact with. But again, from a product standpoint, you still need to understand. It's easy to interact with, but you still need to understand the frameworks that are being used.
Excellent. So yeah, and with the frameworks at the core of it, you can use the frameworks without the product.
Right.
And so that's this distinction there with what's being used consistently. And so how is that improving the overall alignment there within both within Grainger and with your operating partners as well? You mentioned using clinical problem statements with your operating partners as well.
I would say that part of it, we're starting to see that we can get to a draft product decision record or a draft product requirements document while we sit with them, and we can move quickly to validate what we've drafted up and finalize it, get it on the board, get it prepped for engineering to pick up.
Okay.
You know, I have a colleague where they actually said, you know, let engineering be the problem, let engineering be the bottleneck. And I think that's always an interesting thing for product, where can we get the work fast enough if there's a continuous flow? And I think we are on the verge of getting there by using these tools.
Yeah, that's really a powerful statement right there, because we've been hearing with more engineering organizations adopting code assistance tools, co-pilots, vibe coding tools, they're in some cases they're speeding up to the point where product is becoming a bottleneck.
Yep.
And so really thinking in terms of how can we deliver valuable direction more quickly and at greater scale, so that our more efficient engineering teams can take advantage of their efficiency. Is a really powerful statement area to be solving problems in as well.
I think we can do a lot more, even to that. We talk about experimenting, right? If we talk about using Scamper, now I can define a set of experiments that I want certain teams to go run to validate before we actually put anything into production. And those experiments run back to, well, here's what we believe, you know, one, the job is, what the outcomes are, and what the problems are. And it's a clean beeline, and we can instrument those experiments to make sure that we have validated or invalidated that hypothesis. So it's production, but also experimentation that I think will help us go faster.
Yeah. Cool. Very good. We've got just a few minutes left. How are we coming here on the...
It's moving.
It's moving right along. Any questions out there while we're letting the network catch us?
You see a full job definition. So I use... there's a company called Thrive, and they have some SaaS software around jobs to be done. I like their universal job map structure. And so all this is saying, regardless of the technology, and this is where we get into talking about what is the work agnostic of the technology versus the work, the journey that uses the technology. And so getting to what are you actually trying to get done and forcing that conversation. And so we actually introduce jobs to be done with our operating partners before the problem statement. And that was a very good uptake because we had to talk about, it's not going to be a faster horse, if you will. It may look different.
I think Devin's over there with tears of joy rolling down his cheek right now, saying we've introduced jobs to be done to our operating partners before we even did problem statements.
Yeah, and it was a good uptake, and some of the other teams are starting to look at it also. But the goal is how do you agnostic of whatever technology you choose, because it could be a desktop app, it could be mobile, it could be vision goggles, laser cats, right? Yeah. It could be something very different. And so how do you drive that conversation so that you can get better outcomes? And so now we're introducing problem statements for the same reason. How do you get agnostic of the journey, the pain that you feel with this piece of software so we can get to better outcomes for the work?
Yep.
And we'll continue to do that as we look at solution options, et cetera. But I think this is where it should start when you talk about working with operating partners.
Okay, cool. And let's see, we also had, so Blossom asked in the chat, she asked if you've been able to use AI agents to speed up acceptance testing yet. Is that something you've done anything with?
I've been tinkering with it on personal projects.
Okay.
And it's really about me telling the agent you have to use behavior-driven development and using test-driven development. Now, acceptance testing from a particular user, not done that yet, but I think that's where that experimentation comes in, in instrumenting things in order to do that.
Right. I know that similarly, not from a acceptance testing perspective, but Blossom, I have in my projects, I have made it a habit now to I'm not going to lie, I am not the most detail-oriented when it comes to software development. I am, let's get the happy path done and then figure out the rest later.
Right.
So I have been having a lot of success with having my agents create regression tests. And
there you go.
So that as we iterate on the software, I've got some pretty large regression suites at this point. Just kind of going back and making sure everything continues to work.
One to that end, one thing that I've been pushing the agent for, I use a tool called taskfile.dev. It's an alternative to Makefiles.
Okay.
It's a YAML file that allows you to basically develop a set of scripts. And so developing that testing strategy, I say, agent, you must run this pipeline with all the tests before you can move on at every point.
Gotcha.
And so it's forcing that if something breaks, you have to stop, you have to go fix it. You don't get to keep going.
Yep.
Now, sometimes it's turned off tests until it can figure it out, but it does force that regression. But it also eliminates a lot of token use by using external tools. So I would plug taskfile.dev. They actually do have an MCP server that exposes the tasks that you create for agents to use.
So I'm really, I'm not going to ask anybody to raise hands, but you're talking about a lot of fairly down in the details concepts. Like I wouldn't expect a business user to necessarily know what a YAML file is.
Right.
Right. So when we were talking at the beginning of the session about that line between where product managers must be, where they benefit from being, and where it's just if you're interested, go over here. Talk real quickly about the level of work that you're doing here to systematize the frameworks with all these agents. Is this a must-have skill, or is this where does this exist on the spectrum to you? If you're thinking about hiring for your team, where does this skill set fall in the spectrum?
The skill set for me is more around, do you understand the frameworks? Do you understand how to use them to get to the value that we need to create?
And then the agent development, that's Cavelle loves doing this.
Right.
Yeah,
the agent development is, can we do that in a way that allows us to get to value faster? But from a hiring standpoint, if you're not familiar with, Rice method, or Kano, some of those are a bit more obscure, but being clear about how you discover, what the problems are, how you define what the solutions may be, how you design them, et cetera. Those are basic things that product management needs to understand. So I would focus more on, do you understand the frameworks?
Right.
Do you understand how to get from A to B?
Yeah. Gotcha. So that's really good directionally speaking. And then Jerry was asking what the jobs to be done SaaS company that you referenced was again.
Thrive.
Thrive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. And yeah, Stephen had dropped a link in there possibly.
And so I can show, if you can see the screen, this is a problem statement. So symptoms, diagnosis, prognosis, it actually did develop, and it actually did it pretty quickly. The full view. Now, again, this is where it kind of goes off the rails a little bit. So it adds in treatment, but it used Moscow.
Interesting. Okay.
Right. Even though it's supposed to use Kano modeling. And so problem prioritization.
So when it's using Kano, is it predicting the category, the need level, versus it's not pulling it from actual data. It's being predictive.
This is where I'm using other agents to synthesize what how the users would perceive the solution or the problem.
Okay.
Is it going to be 100% correct? No, but my perspective was, if I can synthesize enough differentiation in the perspective, so the cross between thinking hats and crossing the chasm, now I have a kind of a layered perspective of a user that is the executor or the beneficiary. And so from using that lens, review the solution, review the problem statement. Like I said, what I want to get to is it's actually sampling from real user feedback that we have, which would be excellent.
So, and the cool thing about it is, and I know we're at the top of the hour, so tell people how they can get this for themselves.
So I will put this in a chat.
Okay.
I did set up a website, and it basically is just 2 or 3 steps. I prefer Zed and open code, and so that's what it's based on. But I believe you got it working with Visual Studio.
Because you set it up to work with Zed, I downloaded Zed. I've never used Zed before, so I'm kind of trying to figure that out. I did get it working with Claude instead of GitHub Copilot and open code. But Claude had to rewrite the commands into / commands in the Claude format. But it just went and autonomously did that. I didn't have a chance to test it out. I'll do some side-by-side testing later.
So yeah, the website is up and running. The intent is that this will be available as an open source project, and I'll continue to refine it.
Awesome. That's fantastic. And I've connected to you're on GitLab, not GitHub.
Yes, I'm a fan of GitLab.
Okay. So you're making me try all this other stuff,
all
man.
This new stuff.
But the cool thing about it is if you go and you clone the repository and get a look at it, everything is in Markdown file. So you can actually go through and look at the commands, how they're structured. You can look at all the frameworks so you can understand exactly how this process is running and how it's working through, and then you also have an invitation for people to contribute to the project as well if they'd like to, right?
Correct.
So that's fantastic.
Yes.
So more community stuff. Let's switch over here to the Zoom chat real quick and see if there's any last minute questions here. I don't see
Jason, I've got one.
Oh, go ahead. I see, Jerry, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I was fascinated, Cavelle, by your comment around the fact that you're modeling users to predict the Kano responses. I find that very fascinating. I'm curious, have you ever run experiments to validate the results from that model? And if so, what has that been like?
Not yet. I do look at it. Given kind of the role that I have, we do have a lot of user feedback. And so I can look at it and kind of ask the question, is this something one of our operating partners, if they're, say, in the field, can I validate that? Or I can say, I don't think this is what the job beneficiary would say, like finance, and it'll say that, well, the finance leader thinks this. And I'm like, that's probably not what our finance leader is thinking. So that's where you get into you only go so far, you tweak it. You only go so far, you tweak it. This is where I also want, again, to have the data, the actual data coming into the system, and potentially having the XLT or other team members engage with that process so that we can tweak it and validate it, and making those calls become easier because it's a shared context now, and we kind of know already what those leaders are thinking, and we also know the value, and we feel comfortable with this. We believe that this is the value that we're going to create. Right. So it'll be an easier pass, if you will.
Very cool.
Okay, cool. Thanks. Yeah, I've used AI to model personas and then use that to practice interviews. But in that case, what I was doing was just getting myself ready for what might happen in a real interview. So I had the ability to kind of validate AI with reality. But I appreciate that, though, because I do find it interesting using Kano to model what users might do.
Now, what I would...
Or using AI to model users in I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah, so I'm using agents basically to create a persona, but that persona is an opinionated persona based upon 2 frameworks that I've put together. Now, can I use that to say, well, let's define an interview guide that we can put in front of our UX research teams,
right,
for them to review, refine, and make sure that they're comfortable with it. Again, all based upon the line of thinking that goes back to, are we looking at the right things? So I wouldn't say that it's a replacement ever, right? There's a lot of perspective that needs to be accounted for when we talk about making changes for large groups of people. Can it give you a head start to go validate? Yes.
Oh, absolutely.
I think, and if you pair that a little bit with Mark Michelson's session that we had back at the end of November on building digital twins and synthetic user personas, you start to put a little bit of rigor around the artificial persona compared to a repository of some of some communications that you might have. So it might give you a little bit more confidence in that as well. So there's lots of directions for this to go. This is rapidly evolving field, rapidly evolving workflow and tool set. I'm really thankful that you could come and share this with us today and talk a little bit more about how it's impacting the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
And really hope everybody will take advantage of checking it out. And if you're still with us, make sure, would love to have you join us and as a Product Coffee Insider or Premium member, and join our AI Habit Lab there in Slack and be a part of that as well. So everybody have a great week. We will look forward to seeing you back here next week at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be a little bit colder next week, so we'll feel a little bit more like Minnesota, John. And everybody have a great week. Take care.